This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
Lost in all the Brandon Aiyuk hysteria that this franchise went through for the last few weeks, because their pursuit of that trade, is the fact that the Browns have what I see as a really solid group of pass catchers. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to review the Browns pass catchers. So if you don't know, we're going to be talking about the receiving capabilities of the Browns wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, pass catchers. Anybody who catches a pass will be talked about in this video. We're going to start with the wide receivers. I think this is a pretty solid room, a better room than most. Like, I think this is a room that ranks solidly like within the top 9 to 13 in the NFL. Like, it doesn't have that big name to put it over the top, right? And I think that's what they were hoping for with the Brandon Aiyuk trade. Now, there's a debate whether Brandon Aiyuk is better than Amari Cooper. Still, I think Amari Cooper anchoring this group as the #1 wide receiver with the complement that includes Jeudy and David Njoku is enough to put this as a fringe top 10 group in the NFL. Amari Cooper does everything that you want a #1 wide receiver to do. He's reliable on first, second, and third down. He's reliable to go down the field. He's a big play guy. He's somebody who can go up and get 50-50 balls. Like, name a thing that you expect a wide receiver to do that Amari Cooper can't do. Like, maybe take end arounds. He doesn't do that well anymore, but the Browns have plenty of wide receivers on the roster that can handle that responsibility. Amari Cooper is truly underrated. So many people undervalue what he brings to the roster, but he is somebody who can do everything that you want a #1 wide receiver can do and is reliable. The one thing with Coop, he's going to get banged up as the year goes on. That's almost a constant with Amari Cooper, but he will play most of the game. So even his health, he is more reliable than a lot of other guys who are higher than him on a talent spectrum, but not necessarily on a reliability spectrum. Amari Cooper, very good player, does everything you need a #1 wide receiver to do. Amari Cooper's like having the nicest Honda or the nicest Kia or the nicest Toyota. At the end of the day, that car that's less flashy will probably give you a lot more bang for your buck because you don't have to deal with the extra costs that some luxury cars come with, right? If you have a luxury car, you got to pay for special tires and things fall off and they use specialty parts, and they're just a little bit more of a hassle to deal with. With Amari Cooper, it's a really nice Toyota where it's like it uses standard parts. You get everything you need to fix it at AutoZone. You're not going to blow anybody away. You're not going to make anybody jealous because you're bringing this car to the lot. What you are going to have is a car that's really nice, that always works, and that's underrated. It's super underrated, and that's what Amari Cooper is in my eyes. And if you don't know, I'm not really like a fan of luxury cars, so like that is the height of my like compliment tier. If I'm calling you a Honda Civic, that is a huge compliment to me because that's like what I see to be as like the best car that I would want is like a Honda Civic EX post like 2020. But my frugal car ambitions aside, I think Amari Cooper is just a perfect fit for what the Browns have here. Jeudy is a interesting piece that the Browns added. Now, he's going to play a lot more in the slot, so he's not technically a #2 wide receiver, but he's going to be the #2 wide receiver in terms of wide receiver targets on this team because he's probably going to get more targets than Elijah Moore. Jeudy, I think he's going to do a lot of like big plays downfield or stretching the field out vertically from the seam on, because that's not something that David Njoku does well. Quiet is kept. Like, I think him and David Njoku are going to be used a lot. Like they're going to tandem those two or run routes that kind of branch off of each other. Like I think that Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, they're going to see each other's jersey numbers a lot in this offense because they have skill sets that are different but complement each other, right? You want to hit Jerry Jeudy down middle a lot more, and you want to get David Njoku early in the route while he's still in motion so you can get him downhill and running the football. Like, you're going to use them to get each other open a lot, or you're going to use them to put linebackers in conflict. So they have to pick between the two so you can throw to the man that the linebacker leaves. I think that's going to be a part of it. There's going to be some choice route stuff. Jerry Jeudy seems very excited about the choice route stuff. We've already seen in camp with a deep ball between Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy looks like. I think there's a lot there to get excited about with that combination. I think these two fit, and I'm talking about Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy. He fits really well, and I think Jerry Jeudy fits really well into what the Browns hope to do. So I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be a nice surprise here. I don't know if his overall numbers blow anybody away, but what I do think is going to happen with Jerry Jeudy is that he's going to be a lot more efficient than he was in Denver, in Cleveland. Then there's Elijah Moore, and I just continue to get excited about Elijah Moore the more I think about it. I think of what he did at the end of last year. I rewatch what he did at the end of last year, and I see a player who started to figure out where his use case could be in the NFL. He's somebody who's a outside wide receiver. I know a lot of people like to pigeonhole him as a slot wide receiver. And that's going to be easy for a lot of people to do because not only is he going to be the smallest wide receiver on the field, but he's going to be the third most targeted wide receiver. And usually we associate that guy with third on the depth chart, who's going to be the slot receiver. But that's not what Elijah Moore is going to do. He's probably going to play the Z on this offense. So that's going to be something he does a lot, go downfield. I think they're going to try to hit him with some double moves. I think there's going to be a lot there for Elijah Moore to attack, especially now that there's going to be even less attention on him. And I think if a healthy Deshaun Watson plays a full set of 17 games, I think you're going to see a lot from Elijah Moore because he's going to be somebody who's going to break open a lot in scramble drills. He's going to be somebody who can improvise to do stuff with Deshaun Watson, especially against certain coverages, because he's going to have a lot of freedom based on how teams try to cover him because of the attention they have to pay to David Njoku and Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. I think Elijah Moore is in for a sneaky nice year, and it's a contract year for him, so he would be massively benefited to have that big year. Then you got the young guys who are going to be on the bench: Cedric Tillman, David Bell, and Jamari Thrash. As far as Cedric Tillman goes, I love what I've seen from him in camp so far. Hopefully during joint practices, we see even more from Cedric Tillman and get even more excited about Cedric Tillman. That being said, still have to see it in games. While it's nice to see it in the preseason, while it's nice to see it on this small scale, still have to see it in games, and really still got to see it when Deshaun Watson is at quarterback, making the audibles, making the checks, all of the things that I think confused him, right? Because it's one thing when you're running a play in training camp and it's the play that you're supposed to run and nothing changes. It's another thing when it's a game, you have that adrenaline going, you're in for a play, but you're not always in. So you're like extra hyped up and there's crowd noise. And now Deshaun's checking his stuff and he's moving things around. And can you keep up? Right? That's going to be a different battle for Cedric Tillman. And while it's nice to see him have a good camp, still got to see him do it in that environment. The talent is there. He has immense talent. If he can utilize it, I think there's something there for him. David Bell is somebody I like. Again, another guy who had a strong end to 2023. And the one thing with David Bell is he is what he is, which is a pretty solid fifth receiver. And nobody gets excited about somebody you drafted in the third round being a pretty solid fifth receiver, but that's what he is, right? He's somebody who came in the clutch a couple of times last year on fourth down when Joe Flacco was out there. He's going to be where he's supposed to be. He's solid when it comes to improvisation, right? If Deshaun Watson decides he needs to break the pocket, do a scramble drill, David Bell is good with that. He usually has pretty strong hands, and he's savvy and smart enough to know where he needs to go. I like David Bell. Not as a number 1, 2, or a future number 1 or 2. I think he's always going to be the 5th or 4th guy on your wide receiver depth chart. And I think that's fine. I think that's where he fits. But that's where I have David Bell. And then Jamari Thrash is somebody I think can have a spot like that early, right? The kind of bottom of the wide receiver room spot where you're not going to really do that much. You're going to probably run some decoy routes, or you're going to be asked to block. But I do think there's some growth potential there for Jamari Thrash, not to be a number 1 or 2 or even 3 wide receiver, but I think similar to David Bell, but a little bit more potential. He could be like a 4th wide receiver. I see like Willie Snead as a good comp for what Jamari Thrash could become. I think Willie Snead would be really good for a dude like Jamari Thrash to become. I know sometimes people get like wrapped up in their excitement for a wide receiver and they start believing Jamari Thrash is the next Victor Cruz and he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver and make a Pro Bowl. I tend to try to get my excitement in very realistic areas or really realistic goals for these players. And with Jamari Thrash, I see the realistic goal is Willie Snead. And that's going to be like, if he hits that, that's great. That's really good. But that's where it is for the wide receivers. To talk about the tight ends, going to only talk about 2, David Njoku and Jordan Akins. Now, I talked about David Njoku already in this video, so I'm going to keep it short about him. But really what you love about David Njoku is his ability to play make after the ball gets into his hands. So you want to get him downhill. I think the Browns figured it out with him. You just want to use him on shorter routes. Like for the longest time, the Browns wanted to use David Njoku as this deep down the field threat or this 50-50 jump ball guy, and that's just not who David is. They figured out that, hey, David can basically take these extended handoffs, like kind of routes that you would give the running backs or slot guys, you can give the David Njoku, and that's why I think he's going to be used in tandem a lot with Jerry Jeudy. So that's David. Jordan Akins is an interesting one because he was more of a downfield kind of guy in Houston. I don't know if the Browns are going to run a ton of 12. And if they do run a ton of 12 personnel, like does it make sense to have Jordan Akins out there? Like, does 12 personnel make sense with as many wide receivers as you have on the roster? I don't know where he fits into the game plan, but I do think that there's a player there who could be somewhat effective, right? A 300, 400 yard guy. So that's kind of where my sights are set with Jordan Akins. And then when it comes to running backs, Nick Chubb, he is somebody who's going to be a complimentary like wide receiver when he's used as a wide receiver. Somebody's going to catch some very basic routes. Somebody's going to do some very like screens or something like that. That's what Nick Chubb's strength is as a receiving back. He's not going to be running a ton of different routes. You don't want him running real routes and empty or something like that. But that's where somebody like a Jerome Ford comes in, because Jerome Ford, I think he's pretty solid in pass protection, and I think he's a pretty solid receiving back. And that's where you can use Jerome Ford at his best, because what Jerome Ford has in his skill set that I think is the nicest is his ability to kind of get downfield and burst. Like, he has a nice burst and acceleration about him that can create a lot of big plays. We saw this, like Jerome Ford created a lot of big plays from receiving and a lot of big plays from running the ball last year. I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's because he has a specific skill set that allows that if he gets in space. So I think using him as a receiving back and a change of pace guy, we talked about it. The game that he had against the Jets is really the blueprint. So if you want to see what the blueprint is for Jerome Ford, go watch what he did against the Jets, right? 12 carries. Not going to hit on every one of them, but maybe he gets a burst every 5 or 6 of them and he gets 50-something yards, and then use him heavily in the receiving game when you want to have a running back out there. And I think that's kind of where Jerome Ford falls in. That's my review of the pass catchers. If I have to give the pass catchers a grade, I think this is a A- grade pass catching room, right? Just slightly below one of the best or the elite rooms in the NFL, right? They don't necessarily have that extra punch of star power. If they had Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy like develops into another 1,000-yard wide receiver, then you talk about breaking in there. But as of right now, they don't really have that extra punch to get in there. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Still a really good wide receiver room. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.